What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Yellow Studio. We're here sitting down with Nicholas Merten, also known as DataDash, the #1 blockchain YouTuber in the world. Here joining me in the studio is also Taylor West. How you doing, Taylor?
What's up, guys?
And of course, we got Brandon.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us, Nick. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Taylor, Steve, Brandon, thank you guys for having me. It's great to be on, and it's great to catch up with you guys since we last all pretty much talked back in April in Chiang Mai.
So you were actually here in Chiang Mai back in April of 2018 for the TokenomX conference. What did you think about Chiang Mai while you're here?
Chiang Mai was really interesting. It was one of the first areas I actually got to visit inside Asia outside of Singapore. And what was immensely impressive to me was just the amount of technology development inside of Chiang Mai. The people I met there were extremely kind. I like how, in this place of the world where I would have never thought would be involved in blockchain and cryptocurrency, there's actually this really good match made in heaven in a sense where you've got not only a lot of developers there who are eager to develop cryptocurrency and blockchain technology, but you also have a country like Thailand, which is still very cash-based in this case. So I think they still have yet to really make that transition to digital currencies. And with cryptocurrencies coming around the corner, they might be able to, like, for example, a lot of African nations leapfrog to new technologies without, taking on the old artificial means of, conducting some form of technology.
Yeah, well, it was only recently that Thailand had their first election conducted on the blockchain. They actually elected a party leader and had a democratic election, hundreds of thousands of votes cast, and did it through the blockchain.
Wow, geez, that's impressive. Yeah, I mean, I think voting on the blockchain is something that I think will become a little more mainstream if we continue to see not only where I live in the United States, but just abroad, more digital voting. But it's an interesting application. It's just a matter about how you reach that consensus over the blockchain itself. And I'm glad to see Thailand kind of taking those first steps. You see this predominantly, I think, in Asia, as again, you're starting to move much more towards a digital economy. And I think they're just more open to stuff like this comparative to, say, where we are in the United States.
Yeah, so last year, you at TokenomX 2018, you gave a talk called the Protocol Wars. It was actually one of the most popular talks at TokenomX last year. And I just want you to tell us, what was that talk about and how well was it received?
Yeah, definitely. I was happy to hear that people liked it. And it's interestingly enough, it wasn't something that I was like really anticipating for the long term or really excited about long term. I was more excited about in the short term. The Protocol Wars was a talk that discussed how in the next few months, so this was back in April of 2018 when I gave the talk, during that time period, I was looking forward to over the next few months, something that I called the Protocol Wars, which was going to be this very big wave of speculation in the ICO space in regards to a lot of the new protocols coming to market and doing ICOs and raising ridiculous amounts of money at ridiculous valuations. Again, it was more towards the speculation aspect rather than fundamentals or real development. But one thing that was really exciting was that we started to see some competition against Ethereum. So you obviously saw the advent of EOS, Cardano, a lot of these protocols coming in late 2017, and it started to become apparent that there was going to be some competition coming up. So over the past few months, that has transpired a little bit. We have seen more development. We've obviously entered into the bear market, but we did see that wave of speculation where after April, you saw ridiculous raises. Telegram had I can't remember, it was a 1 billion ICO. EOS continued to raise. I mean, it was just absolutely mind-blowing as to the amount of capital that was being raised. I think it was short-lived, though, a little bit shorter than I had expected because of the fact that the retail liquidity and trading wasn't there to continue it going forward. And that kind of killed off, I think, a lot of the confidence with those trying to speculate and continuing to play into this whole excitement of what could be the next Ethereum in that case. That was, I think, what everyone was really chasing.
That was actually a really good talk at TokenomX, man. What was really fun about Chiang Mai with you in particular was you arrived on Songkran. And for those of you that don't know what Songkran is, it's the festival where everybody gets wet for like a week.
It's a countrywide water fight.
It's one of the biggest festivals in Thailand, and everybody gets completely drenched. There's trucks driving down the road with huge buckets of ice water and kids in the back throwing it on you. And people with giant squirt guns squirting everybody, and you cannot leave your doorstep without getting completely drenched. And Nick shows up to Thailand for his very first time to speak at this conference at Tokenomics. And he shows up in the middle of the day on the biggest day of Songkran, and the hotel that he booked was in the middle of Old Town, right in the middle of the square, and he jumps in a tuk-tuk, I think, right? And
I ended up, I wasn't a tuk-tuk. I basically walked down because it wasn't too far from the hotel, and I thought, like, look, I know people are going to try and soak everyone, but I don't think anyone will get me. And I think it was the day before the conference, so luckily I wasn't all dressed up or anything, but I was walking literally 2 blocks away from meeting with you and Stephanie and everyone. I ended up just getting completely soaked. Someone with a bucket just came over and just like splashed the entire front of my shirt. So it was a good it was a wet welcome, I guess, in a sense, to Thailand, but it was a good time. I love Songkran. I wish that in the United States we had some stuff like that. I love like cultural celebrations like that, and it was just so cool to see everyone out in the streets having a good time, and to see it going on for like 3 or 4 days. I mean, that's incredible.
be careful what you wish for. I was on Facebook last time I was in the States in Austin, and I saw that they're already copying the other big festival in Thailand, which is the Lantern Festival.
What?
You know,
okay.
Yeah, you know.
They're
No,
letting
not just in
lanterns go
Austin.
the sky?
Huh?
They're letting lanterns go into the sky.
Yeah. No, it's not just in Austin. They're doing it all over the United States.
Wow.
And they're doing it in different cities at different times. They're like making it almost like a music festival, which is kind of bugs me a little bit because it's like the most sacred holiday over here.
Yeah.
Well, not sacred, but you know.
There's like a spiritual aspect to it. It's culturally significant, and it's like, oh, we like that. Let's replicate it.
Let's do it. So, yeah, it's interesting stuff. But this time you're showing up in the end of February for Tokenomics to give your talk. What are you going to be giving your talk on this time?
Last time I checked it, basically what I'm planning to do is to talk about how cryptocurrencies are developing in emerging markets. This is something that's really caught my eye as of recent, because I think with every wave of cryptocurrencies, there's some sense of speculation that drives it forward. And I have no doubt speculation is going to play a big role for cryptocurrencies over the next decade until it really starts to see mainstream or relative adoption. But the thing that I'm excited about in the sense of real adoption is what's going on in emerging markets. So these are usually developing economies or underdeveloped economies that have unstable currencies, sometimes deal with corruption in government, are still very commodity-based economies or commodity export economies. And with the issues that they struggle with, the biggest one has to probably be the lack of a stable currency. In this case, a currency that holds its value compared to world stores of value like the dollar in the United States. One that, for example, won't go through hyperinflation, one that cannot be censored or traced by the government in this case. Again, as we still have a lot of these cash-based societies, these are important principles that people need. And we can see in a lot of economies, not just in the poster child economies where it's just absolutely terrifying, which is Venezuela, but you also have other South American economies like Argentina, Chile, for example. And you can also go to other countries across the world. You have Turkey, for example, and the Philippines. There's all these areas where we're starting to see pockets of devaluation in the currency, even in some of the larger ones like India and China, which is going to be on my watch list in 2019 going forward into 2020. And as we start to see what's known as contagion in economics when it comes to emerging markets, where when one emerging market starts to face issues, another one continues on, and it starts to cause a domino effect. As we start to see some of the larger emerging markets get into these similar situations in different degrees, it's going to set a demand, in this case, for cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrencies fix a lot of those issues I mentioned earlier. They are censorship resistant in the West. That's not really an issue for us, but for someone in a developing economy who wants to do commerce, and a government may not want that to happen, it means a lot to them. It means the world. To have a stable currency with stable monetary policy that can't be hyperinflated, in this case, that has a fixed set of rules as to how the currency is generated over a longer period of time and what the supply will be. It's very predictable. These are things, again, that are very, very important to people in emerging markets. And it leads me to, kind of the conclusion of where cryptocurrencies are, what they are as a whole, and where they're going to lead to over the next, over the next decade between 2020 to 2030. And that is, it's in a new emerging currency class for people in the world who have a lack of faith in their government or their central banks, and really get to have true free financial sovereignty if they choose to. It fixes a lot of the issues that fiat currency pulled back from gold. So there's kind of a progression of 5 major innovations in money. You first started off thousands of years ago with something known as commodity money, and this is where local tribes and communities would use things like shells or different forms of accounting that would determine wealth. And then it went on to having a stable commodity that everyone used, known as gold. Gold was really the first form of money. And then you moved on to paper money, which took a long time, as well as most innovations in money do. It took hundreds of years to finally convince societies to start using paper as a means of currency. And it was imperfect because money could be printed, and it was usually, in some cases, backed by gold. But later on, we've seen with the removal of the gold standard that really paper currency just needs the backing of its government in this case. But again, you still have that issue of printing endless currency. And then you have another mean of transferring currency, which was digital money or plastic money with debit and credit cards, and the use of, obviously, digital accounting from banking behind the scenes. And then that led to this 5th innovation, which is going to be cryptocurrencies. And cryptocurrencies have all the great benefits of digital money, the convenience of using digital money comparative to precious metals. But the one thing that it fixes that currency could not do originally, or fiat currency more specifically, is a finite supply or finite monetary policy. And I think, again, there's a lot of people who say that, oh, no, Nick, crypto and blockchain are meant for enterprise and they're meant for this. And I 100% agree. There are some great technological innovations that blockchain can bring to a variety of corporate industries. But for me, the one thing I can think of when I think about what blockchains do well, and that is removing trust and really bringing sovereignty, in a sense, to accounting of who owns what. When I look at those two factors and in regards to what blockchain does, the thing that I feel could benefit most from those two values is money. There is nothing more important in the world than money in this case. I mean, that's what we work for on a day-to-day basis. It's our livelihood in that case. And if you can bring something like that brings so much financial sovereignty to people who need it, I mean, that's extremely exciting. So I think we're on our steps to that way. I know I kind of went on a tangent there, but I think that's the thing to focus on here. And we'll continue to see development in that regard. You'll continue to see adoption in emerging markets. And I think it'll become very clear in the next, say, 3 or 5 years that that's where we need to put our focus as an ecosystem.
Well, that's great. You've always been a strong advocate for blockchain in the long term. Where do you think we stand on the cycle for crypto?
It's a good question. I mean, the question of where we are, I think a lot of people have the misconception, as we've talked about beforehand, about, people thought that back in 2017, we went through our dot-com bubble for crypto. And it's very easy to build that comparison because in the dot-com bubble, you had ridiculous overvaluations. You had people raising capital who didn't deserve it. It was pure dumb money in a sense. Investors looking to just simply speculate, and they knew what they were investing in was most likely not going to work long term. Same exactly with what happened in 2017. But the thing is, the metric that I look at is the rate of adoption to really gauge where we are. And you'll get different varying statistics. Some people, for example, pick out specific geographical regions, and they'll say 5% of citizens in Asia have cryptocurrencies, or this percentage amount of people in the U.S. have crypto. The fact of the matter is I think it's important to focus on a global audience. And most statistics that actually are rooted in good data will point to that we are less than 1% of adoption globally. And that is just simply owning cryptocurrencies, right? This isn't using cryptocurrencies on a day-to-day basis as a currency, which is even smaller. So taking that, let's just say we round it off to about 1% in this case. If that's the case, we're at the equivalent of where the internet was in 1994. And that was a few years prior to the dot-com bubble. So what happens, we saw this craziness back in 2017 and 2018 with the crazy amounts that people were raising. What happens when you get to 3 or 5% adoption, right? And that's when you get your dot-com bubble. That's when you get multi-trillion dollar valuation for the cryptocurrency market. You'll start to see people actually using it in economies who need it. But again, that means you have waves of speculation that are going to come through. If we haven't learned from the price action of Bitcoin that it is going to continue to repeat this multi-year cycle where it has parabolic run-ups and then 80 to 90% corrections and then parabolic run-ups and 80 to 90% corrections, if we don't learn that this is just going to keep on repeating, we're missing out on opportunities in that case. So I'm looking forward right now to preparing for that next cycle, building out some great technology, and hopefully playing a role in helping to support one of the big winners that comes out in the long term in that aspect of, peer-to-peer digital currency, or really kind of, bringing crypto to the masses.
Right. Well, recently you made a prediction about the Bitcoin ETF that you believe it's going to happen in 2019. What makes you so confident that it's going to happen so soon? I mean, the SEC has said that it might take 20 years. Why do you think it's going to be happening in 2019?
Yeah, so I'm not 100% sure it'll be in 2019. I'm thinking that it's more likely than not. But the thing I want to stand by first is that it's not going to happen in Q1 or Q2 of 2019. A lot of people want it to happen every month, and they think that every proposal is just going to get passed, and that's just not true. We learned that in 2018 that it's going to take a little bit longer than we think. But there is a demand for this market in the sense of institutional liquidity getting in. I can tell you, I've had people, for example, who work in the institutional space who have called up on the phone, financial planners and managers, and they're like, look, I don't care how you do it. I want to put 10% of my money inside Bitcoin, and I want to do it now. And they had to deal with that all through 2017 and 2018. So you can see that there's a demand for both retail and institutional investors. I think you will only get a Bitcoin ETF in 2019 and or 2020 if you fix the issue of manipulation and lack of liquidity. And if you fix lack of liquidity, you'll also most likely fix the manipulation issue in this case, at least for Bitcoin in this case. For altcoins, that's a whole nother gambit in that case. But talking on a Bitcoin ETF, the SEC's only concern is that this market is liquid enough, because we can see right now, I think people who are ignorant of it are missing the point. You can go take a look at Bitcoin's chart right now, and you see the famous BART charts where you see prices going up $200 or $300 for an hour and then going down again $400 or $500. It's very unorganic in that sense. There's a few people who really are doing this, and they're manipulating price and then benefiting on trading on margin on exchanges like BitMEX and Bitfinex. And the SEC is not going to deal with that. They see that it's still a very childish market. So what I'm looking forward to in 2019 is either the SEC finding a way to get around that manipulation. I don't know how you could do it. I mean, there's a few theories I have, or B, really having something like that, for example, that brings in some interest, that brings up price, and you start to get more liquidity coming into this market during this kind of downward period of time. And we start to see a little bit of an uptick in price. If we don't start picking up momentum in the mid part of the year and start seeing prices go back above 10,000, you're not going to get a Bitcoin ETF. So there's a few things you want to look for in that case. But I don't think this will be 20 years. The gold ETF took 5 years to get approved in that case. The Spider ETF, there was a really interesting piece that Real Vision did with the actual founder of the gold ETF. And I think it's gonna take some time, but I don't think it's gonna take any more than 2 or 3 years in this case.
Yeah, yeah.
So how did you get started in trading to begin with? Obviously, you're into stocks and commodities like you already mentioned, but what was your initial draw, or what got you started into trading?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I started out trading in stocks back in, let me make sure I get the year right, pretty much back in like 2011, 2012. It was pretty much as early as I possibly could start trading. I basically opened up a joint brokerage account with my dad, and I started investing as early as possible. And the first companies I invested in were like a Chinese solar company, JA Solar Holdings, and within a month made 30%. But then in the other company that I invested in, it was a penny stock. And this was me this is my early days of macro trading. I was really excited about what was going on in Colorado and a lot of states with legalizing cannabis and everything. And I thought that I could see the trend starting to form, that this was going to happen over the longer term, not only now what's happening in Canada, but also in the United States. And I invested in Medical Marijuana Incorporated. And then again, I thought, I could pick this penny stock and it's going to be different and I'm going to make a lot of money off of it. And lo and behold, I lost 30%. So what ended up happening in my first trade was I lost 30% and I gained 30% on the other half of my money. So it kind of neutralized itself, which was nice. I didn't lose on my first investments. But yeah, I mean, from there on, I continued on going towards trading. And I beforehand had already prepared a lot. I'd been watching material for about a year and studying the markets and understanding human psychology. I didn't leapfrog and just put a ton of money in and bet all in. So it was definitely a learning experience throughout the process. And it's been fun. I've had a great time ever since. I haven't traded stocks in a while, since back in like 2017, but I'm looking to get back in once the market continues to correct another 20 or 30% from where it is now. I trade in FX markets as well, or Forex, and I also trade in cryptocurrencies still as well when I do find opportunities in that case.
How did you learn technical analysis?
Yeah, technical analysis. A lot of people
On
usually
TradingView.
like to learn through the trading view. There's
From
actually
the
a
from
lot
the
of people,
13-year-olds.
a lot of yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the thing. I try to take trading view and a lot of those things, and even like, for example, back in the day when I was trading stocks, I'd always go on stock twits, which is like pretty much social media for stock traders and stuff. And I think they're good to kind of sometimes get a kick out of things, and or to maybe get an idea of, like, to think outside of the box and from a different perspective. But in regards to learning TA, a lot of people try to like ask me like, Nick, do you have any books that you read and like things like that? And I've read a lot of books on markets and stocks. Don't get me wrong, but the thing about it is I learned through videos. I'm a very visual person, and just like how, for example, I've done trading tip videos on my channel that people can go to and understand very basic technical analysis. That's how I learned through the web, is just through video content. And the reason I like that is because it's interactive. I can see a visual chart, usually much more relevant in a time frame rather than a lot of these books that have been made in the 90s and are kind of outdated. They can show me relative ways of what this looks like in modern day markets. And you have someone verbally explaining it, which of course is easy for a lot of people my age just to kind of grasp that. So really from video content in that case. And there's a lot of great YouTubers across the board that too many I can't name, that again are great, and they provide great free materials that you can learn from. But the best thing I'd recommend in that process as you're trying to learn technical analysis, because there is a lot of weight to it, it's very valuable. With technical analysis, and when you start your trading journey about applying technical analysis, it's best to make sure that you're not trading with a lot of money. I'm not trying to give financial advice in that case, but it's best not to step into it with all your money. The best thing to do is to either do paper trading or trade with like $100 to $200, like, right? Money that for most people is not the end of the world in that case. If you've got money to invest, you've obviously got some money that's, on the side in that case. So, just start out small, like trade on something like Robinhood that like is commission free. If you're trading stocks, or trade on like crypto exchanges that take a very small fractional percentage on a trade. They don't charge crazy commissions in that case, and just dabble with it. And the one thing you should do, the last thing I always say, is that while you're doing that, on the side, build a long-term portfolio. If you consider it as well also long-term investing, build a long-term portfolio or track a portfolio. It doesn't have to be something you're invested in, and see if you can outperform that. Because if you can't outperform that portfolio, you may be making money, but you may not be making more than you would just simply letting it sit there and grow. And that's what 98% of people will come to the conclusion on. They can't outpace their long-term investing.
That's certainly good advice.
Well, tell us, what are you looking forward to for this upcoming Tokenomics, the one in 2019, this February in Bangkok?
I'm excited more than anything just to kind of meet back up the same community. I remember meeting some people from Shanghai. I also went to another conference in Bangkok, so hopefully see some of the same people as well. But just to get an idea of what the vibe is kind of in Asia right now with cryptocurrencies and blockchain, because again, like you mentioned, I think way earlier on, in the West, I think we're kind of oblivious to this space and the sense of its potential. And I'm curious to see what people in Chiang Mai, in Bangkok in this case, and Thailand in general, are thinking about crypto and blockchain. Even if, for example, they're digital nomads there, who are visiting and working out of there, or simply some of the citizens who are from kind of either Thailand or Asia in that case. I'm very interested to get a picture of what that looks like, because traveling really opened up my mind in 2018 as to how widespread this space is. And I like it. It's a global space like that. It should be. It's going to be a global revolution in that case of money. So I'm interested to see what it looks like, and interested to hear from some of the speakers. As Taylor mentioned, right now, a lot of people are laying off people and slowing down operations, but there are some projects that are bulking up. They're investing more. They're spending more time working towards their project, and they're more excited than ever. And I'm excited to meet those people and see what they're doing.
Very cool.
Yeah. We met you originally at BEF Singapore, and then saw you again at a hybrid summit, like you just said, hybrid block summit. And then you also spoke at Tokenomics. And so you've been to at least a few. I know that you were to at least a few conferences in Asia last year that I physically saw you at, and then I'm sure you went to several other conferences throughout the world on that little tour that you did. Can you give me an idea? And this is not a loaded question. I want total honest answer. But can you give me an idea of the difference, if you saw one, from the texture and the feeling of these other conferences that you went to in comparison with your time at Tokenomix last year, if there is one?
Yeah, what I found is quite interesting, and I think some people go to. I didn't go to Consensus, for example. So I guess I'm kind of a testing for other people here. A lot of people said that they really like the really crowded conferences like Consensus, and meeting like you get to meet a lot of people really quick and get to network with people and get things done very quick. But I'm not someone who's commonly the one to network with 1,000 different people, hand out my business card and be like, "Hi, nice to meet you. I'm Nick." Like, I'm not into that kind of fake networking. I much rather prefer, and I don't mean this in a rude way, but Tokenomix last year, compared to some of the like conferences like BEF, had a nice, I think, a good, relatively small to medium-sized group of people. It was a good crowd size, and you get to build these really genuine connections when you're there. I like that. I like that about it in that case. And you get to really build good connections with, like, say, like 3 or 5 people who you can always reach out to, and later down the road you're going to want to do something with in some regard, or keep in contact with to learn from. I think that was something that I really liked about Tokenomix. I met a lot of people like that who I became friends with, and may not talk to them every day, but I keep in contact with them. And outside of that, just I think the other thing as well is, depending on what region you're in, you're going to find people who either get it more as to what this space really is and why it's valuable, and you're also going to find people who either don't understand it or are just simply speculating in it, and don't really have intentions for the long term. That's where I felt really empty, is when I would take the time to travel and go to these conferences, and you have a lot of, I think, these kind of Fortune 500 guys who are more on the enterprise side, who are like still trying to make sense of it, and you don't feel like you gain much from it in that case. But there's those who have really been deep in the space, and you can learn some very it's almost immeasurably valuable information in that case.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, hey, Brandon, what do you got over there? You got anything for Nick before we go?
We know Brandon prepared a few special questions for Nick.
Yeah.
I'm special. I am a special question. Actually, I do have a couple questions for you. If there's somebody out there who's interested in blockchain and maybe they just don't know who to contact, how to get involved with it, what would you say that going to events like Tokenomix or other conferences provide benefit to those people? And if so, what kind of things should they expect when they go to events like that?
I definitely say there's a lot of great online resources, but going to a conference, don't shy away from it. There's a lot of great conferences in your area, and wherever you are in the world and stuff. But I think Tokenomix is a good example of that in that case. The thing you can expect to get out of it is that a lot of the speeches might go over your head sometimes with conferences, but there's a lot of people who talk about kind of like the importance of blockchain. You usually find 2 or 3 really good intro presentations. So it's good to look at the pamphlets, see what kind of speeches there are, find ones that would be relevant to the questions you have in your mind, and not shy away from just talking to people. There's a lot of, I think, for example, podcasts are a great example of this. Like, you have me onto a podcast, you ask me questions, I'm willing to just share the whole world with you. People want to share their opinion. They want to share what they have on their mind, and help answer questions for people. So it's something that, at least to get your feet wet, to go to. In that case, you should always definitely consider going to cryptocurrency conferences.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. Well, Steve, you want to wrap it up for us?
That's good. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Nick, for talking to us, sharing your time and insights with us. We look forward to seeing you in February at Tokenomix. Any last words you'd like to say?
Well, guys, I just want to say it was a pleasure coming on. I appreciate you guys having me, and I can't wait to make it back, not only just to Thailand, but also to the conference in Bangkok, and getting to meet some of the community. I hope, for those who are watching, if you guys can make it out, would love to see if we met back in Chiang Mai, or if you're somebody who's watched the channel. Again, would love to meet you in person, and hopefully have a good time at the conference, and all the best for Yellow and all you guys until the conference. I'm excited.
Consider ourselves the visionaries. Consider ourselves the prophets.